Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here at the Green Film Festival of San Francisco, and thanks for joining us. You've just had a chance to see the really wonderful film Giants Rising, and we're lucky enough to have the filmmaker Lisa Landers here. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And also, I mean, we don't always get this, but this is, made by a Bay Area filmmaking team, so it's always kind of neat to kind of support Bay Area filmmakers and um, just really neat to kind of run across a delightful film like this. Uh, Maybe a good place to start is like, what was the kind of catalyst for you to decide that this was the rabbit hole you wanted to go down and story you wanted to tell as a documentary?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny as I've thought about this question quite a bit. I always come back to I think it may have started brewing in my brain when I was 12.
Mhm.
I'm from New York and I came to the Bay Area and I visited Muir Woods and I was just, awestruck and mesmerized. And I think it really, at that moment, I had this like intense explosion, not only of a feeling of like connection to the trees, but also curiosity. And in many ways, I think it's what led me to become a filmmaker, a storyteller who really focuses a lot on stories about nature. It's eventually what made me leave my home in New York, and I've been living here in a small redwood grove in Marin County for about 15 years now.
Oh, wow.
So, but along the way, it took me a while to make this film, but along the way, I had been making shorts about redwoods, about different aspects of redwoods, like about the movement to protect them, about how they're being impacted by climate change. But I really didn't have, I wasn't coming across any film that told the entire epic tale of these trees from all the different perspectives. Um, and then I had an opportunity in 1998 to go up that tree that Julia Butterfly was sitting in to make sure that tree wasn't cut down. If people haven't heard of her, she sat up there for 2 years. Um, and I went up and I just was like, wow, I thought I was smitten by these trees. Look at how these trees impact people, right? Look, she was willing to risk all. And so, that was just another question for me to add to this, growing curiosity and all the different threads that make up this sort of tale of our relationship with the redwoods. So that's what led me to here.
Very cool. And how did you decide to kind of follow the people that you interview in there? I mean, the sense of like, was it kind of word of mouth? Were there people that, based on your other short films, you already knew? They're just such intriguing people. How did you kind of decide who these characters that would follow would be?
Yeah, good question. So I did already have some connections. I already knew about some of the Redwood superstars. Steve Sillett, for example, and Marie Antoine are people who have been navigating the Redwood treetops, and they had a certain amount of celebrity, and I had heard about them. Um, but some of the others, it was just as I plunged into my research, I just was like, oh, look at this story about these albino ghost redwoods. This sounds really cool. I'm just going to call this guy. That's a wonderful thing about documentary filmmaking. Anything you're interested in, it gives you an excuse to like call someone and say, hey, tell me everything. And sometimes they're game and sometimes they're not. I definitely had people who are like, yeah, I'm not interested. But it was kind of like one person led to the next. Like when I was speaking with the folks at Redwood National Park, they led me to the Yurok tribe. And so, yeah, it just sort of snowballed. And I had way too many stories. And as you can imagine, there are a bunch of stories that did not make it in, which is very, very sad to me, but we're going to resurrect them as shorts for educational use.
Nice, yeah. Well, like were there any kind of story? Is there a particular story that was left on the cutting room floor where it was pretty great? It just didn't fit into the overall, I guess, narrative arc of the current film, or what was the hardest story for you to cut out?
Yeah. So um, Steve Sillett and Marie Antoine, we filmed a scene with them where they were working with the woman who is at the Pacific Forest Trust. She's in the film. Her name is Lori Wayburn. Because we don't really go into sort of what she does. And that was the piece we took out. She takes active timberlands and figures out how to make them both, ecologically sustainable and also profitable. And she called in these scientists to go look at some of these incredible woodlands up north to say, what can we do to make sure that these forests have complexity that provides ecosystem services? So the cool thing that they did is they were like, well, there are some old trees here, and maybe we can help them along by transplanting these giant fern beds up into the top of the tree. So we went there and we watched them climb up these trees and transplant these little fern beds. And, the idea is like, just
Wow.
launching them on their way to becoming that kind of more biodiverse, hold more water, all of that. So they're doing really cool projects there. Because, there's so much of the land that is not old growth, but is still redwood landscape, and still has the potential to offer all these amazing, ecosystem services, and then also just be really cool places for us to visit when they're not logging them.
Um, thinking about the size of these forests, how did that kind of affect how you decided to visually, tell the story? Because I mean, the thing that's really neat about the film is it feels very kind of immersive. But like, what was the kind of the approach that you took to kind of filming, and how did you figure that out so that you could kind of do your best to kind of place us in these moments?
Yeah, it's really hard to capture that sense of scale. It really is that sense of awe. John Steinbeck famously said, like, it's impossible. You cannot capture that. So we did our best, and a lot of it was making sure when we could to have a person in the shot for scale, right? We just tried all different angles. There was a lot of lying down on the ground. There was, I mean, we just wanted to, create a portrait of the redwoods where you could see it from every different angle. So obviously using drones was a really important part, because you could do something you couldn't normally do, which was, fly up to the top and, see over the top, go through the tree. All of those things, I think, help you not only feel like you're there, but get this view that you never normally would have had. And the same with the animations that we did, right? It's like, well, if we're seeing all these other angles, how about if we go inside? What's that going to look like? And so we worked with this wonderful local animation team to make those, sort of just really kind of magical animations.
And I'm trying to remember what the name of the animation team is. For those that have attended the Green Film Festival in the past, we've been lucky enough to kind of share some of their shorts over the years, which is
Little fluffy clouds.
Little Fluffy Clouds. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've shared a couple of their short films over the years, which is always neat.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that I really liked about your film is that on its face, it's not an advocacy piece. It allows us to kind of fall in love with these places and kind of make our decisions for things. But I imagine you, given your love for the forces, that there are things that maybe you as an audience, you might want us as an audience to do. I mean, when folks leave the theater or finish watching the film, are there things that we can do to kind of help better protect these forests, but also that you as a filmmaker just would like us to kind of keep in mind?
Yeah. There are three things. And the first thing I would say is I hope people come out feeling more connected to these forests, to forests in general, and feel more inclined to do what you can to help protect them, whether that's volunteering at a park or giving, financial resources, that sort of thing. Number two is finding a way to support more integration of Indigenous insight and knowledge into the management of our forests, especially in our parks. And those, you know, there's just so much to be gained from that, and I think there needs to be more general support for making sure that there's representation kind of at the table when we're making decisions about our state parks and our national parks and things like that. And the third thing is I just hope people get out into the woods more. Like, it doesn't have to be redwoods. I always joke redwoods are like a gateway drug for nature. Like, if you can't feel it with a redwood, uh-oh. But no, there are beautiful woods and natural landscapes everywhere. And the more people go out and make those kind of connections with the natural world, and the more time they spend among trees, the better you're gonna feel as an individual. You have all those benefits to reap. And truly, the better off we may be as a society. Because as you heard in the film, just spending time in those woods makes us more compassionate, collaborative, cooperative, just kind of nicer humans.
Here, here. Well, thank you again, Lisa, for making this film and also kind of taking this time to kind of talk about it with us. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing what you're up to next.
Thanks so much for having us.
Most definitely.